If now doesn't feel like the right time and you're sort of sitting on the fence, it's okay to wait. There will be another Ambient Unlocked collection next year. And they have finally arrived. The Holiday 2024 Hourglass palettes. I purchased all three in the correct packaging this time around. I didn't try to customize and make things overly complicated. They're $90 each. You can use code Erin10 at checkout for 10% off in case you haven't ordered these yet. They also have 2 limited edition brushes, which I didn't see initially when I checked out. Kind of glad I missed them because I most likely would have purchased one of those as well. They have the Evil Eye and the Dragon. For some reason, they don't have a Lotus brush. As you can see, makeup is mostly done, but it's looking incomplete. I'm missing my bronzer, blush, highlighter, and finishing powder, so I'm going to unbox these, swatch them. I have plenty of comparisons to previous palettes, and I'm going to show you what each one of these palettes looks like on my skin tone. We're starting with the Dragon palette. This is going to be best suited for lighter skin tones. I absolutely love the artwork this year. I've heard mixed reviews. Some people really like it. Some people don't really like the packaging this year. There are usually 2 conversations that happen every year whenever these palettes are launched. The first conversation is about repeat shades. I'm happy to note that each palette comes with 5 brand new shades inside. Of course, we're going to swatch them and see just how different they are, but it's nice to know that they have listened to their customers. They didn't just bring out repeats and 1, maybe 2 new shades. I think last year there was one palette with 3 additional shades, but that's it. And the second conversation is inclusivity. Hourglass is pretty notorious for not having an extensive shade range. This year we have a light palette, a medium palette, and a deep palette, and it seems like the deeper palette should work for a lot of deep skin tones. So hopefully this year they did a much better job. I haven't opened that palette yet. I'm going to swatch it on my arm, but I haven't seen it yet on somebody with a deeper skin tone. Inside the Dragon palette, we have 2 finishing powders, 2 blushes, a bronzer, and a highlight. The shades are Dreamlight, Peach Fusion, Divine Light, Mauve Haze, Soft Bronze, and Sunlit Strobe Light. Inside the Evil Eye palette, we have 1 finishing powder, 3 blushes, a highlighter, and a bronzer. The shades are Soft Light, Rose Gold Strobe Light, Pink Fusion, Oasis Glow, Vibrant Coral, and Natural Bronze. Now, I've purposely avoided all reviews up to this point because I never like to accidentally sway my own opinion, so I don't know if anybody has pointed this out yet. I understand that each of these have 5 new shades, but I will say upon looking at them and just seeing them in the pan, they look very similar. Specifically Evil Eye, it just looks like something that I probably already have. But it's also the color story that captures my attention a little bit more. If I were only to purchase one of these palettes and I wasn't purchasing all 3 for the sake of reviewing them, I would most likely choose the Evil Eye based on the shades inside, or palette 2. Lastly, we have the Lotus flower packaging with palette 3 inside. Packaging wise, this is actually my favorite. I think it is so beautiful. It's even more beautiful in person than it is on the website because up close you can see all of the little stroke marks on the artwork. It looks very detailed, very beautiful. Inside we have 2 highlighters, 2 blushes, a finishing powder, and a bronzer. The shades are Gilded Strobe Light, Desert Flush, Eternal Light, Radiant Rose Strobe Light, Red Zero, and Bronze Heat. Usually in red cosmetics like red lipsticks, red blushes, red anything, in order to create that red color, they use carmine, which is crushed up beetles. It sounds really gross, but it's in basically anything that's red, but Hourglass is a vegan brand, so the fact that this is Red Zero, it means that there's 0 carmine, so this is truly a vegan palette. We're starting with the Dragon palette, palette 1. I feel like this is going to be more of a soft, nudie, monochromatic look. I don't know why. All of these colors look a little soft, sandy. I think this will be a really nice bronze summer palette. Like very light, minimal, no makeup. With a clean brush, I'm going to start with Peach Fusion up here at the top. This shade is going to be really complementary with my eyes and lips. The lip is an Hourglass lip liner, and then I just did a little lip butter on top. But I will link all of the products and I'll tag everything used on my face. I'm going to use the same thing each time. Very pretty. I love these powders. I like how it has a little luminosity to it. I don't even know if I would necessarily need to go in with a highlighter if I didn't want to. The peach on its own is really pretty. Okay, maybe I didn't give this palette enough credit. I don't know, it just looks a little bit sad compared to the other palettes, but no, that peach blush is something special. That's really nice. On the other side, I'm gonna do the mauve since we do have two blushes. Yeah, that's really, really pretty. I like them both. And the options that they give are really nice. So this is definitely more of a cooler tone. This is warm tone. This also looks a little bit more matte on the skin. This has a little bit more of a sheen. I wasn't sure if I was gonna like this one as much. I think the peach is still my favorite, but both are really nice. Next, we're going into soft bronze down here to add a little color to the face. I wasn't sure if it was going to be dark enough, but it definitely is dark enough for me. It shows up quite a bit, actually. And it's a very neutral, maybe even slightly cool, but definitely a neutral bronzer. Doesn't have a ton of warmth to it, which I think is really nice. I'm quickly going back with a blank brush just to make sure everything is properly blended. Since I'm going a little bit fast, since I know I'm gonna have to redo my makeup 3 times, or 2 times, 3 times. These powders are very soft and easy to blend, but they can look patchy and crazy if you're sort of fast with your makeup. So I'm just making sure everything looks blended. Going into this gorgeous gold highlighter right here. Love that. Very pretty strobe powder. I would have to check, but I feel like that might be one of the repeat shades. These powders are so silky, so forgiving with fine lines and texture. It really just looks like your skin is glowing. For the last few weeks, I've been using nothing but the Gucci highlighters because I was testing them out and creating content. This reminds me a bit of warm gold. I would say they're very similar on the skin. Of course, this is more of a true powder versus the gel powder. Now we're going to tie everything together using the 2 finishing powders. I'm just going to mix them because I really don't think you would notice a difference on the skin, one versus the other. The shade difference is so small. It's this powder here and this powder. On the face, I don't think that's going to make much of a difference. So let's just go, actually, use the larger side. This is going to add a little luminosity, a little brightness. These powders do not work for me as a setting powder, but as a final step before you get out the door, or just to sort of keep blending everything together, they're really, really beautiful. Because they have that luminosity, not to be confused with the strobe powders or the highlighters, they do have some glow. I have a little hair. They prevent the makeup from looking too dry, too dusty, too powdery, gives that natural skin finish back to the makeup. That way we are glowing all over, and this is our Dragon palette. What do we think? The Hourglass powder texture is so good that I don't think it's possible for me to truly dislike any of these palettes. I think I'm probably going to love all 3. You just have to decide if it's really worth it to you to spend $90 on this palette. Make sure you're saving at least 10% or wait for the holiday savings event. Save 20% if you're VIB Rouge. Do you own a lot of these palettes already? Do you use them regularly? Can you truly justify the purchase? That's really going to be the only question every year. I was fully prepared to be underwhelmed by this color story because in the pan it just doesn't really move me. I think if I saw this in store, I wouldn't be like, wow, I have to have that palette. In fact, I know I would walk right past it and not think twice about it. But here I am looking at the viewfinder and I think, wow, these shades really transformed this makeup look. I was very ghostly before and now I have some fresh color to my face and I think it's really stunning. I can hear myself influencing myself to buy it even though I already purchased. Don't let me influence you. Don't let anybody influence you. You have to take a look at your collection. In fact, pause this video and march. I demand you march to your makeup collection right now. Open all of the drawers and see if you already have something similar. I'm gonna scoot in nice and close, give you one final look at the Dragon palette, and then I'm going to wash my face and come back for palette 2. We're back with a fresh complexion going into the Evil Eye palette. Now this palette contains 3 different blushes. So I think what I'm gonna do is start with this light blush on one side, and then we can maybe build one of the other 2. That way we can still see what all 3 look like. I'm starting with Oasis Glow here in the corner. Ooh, that's pretty. It has a little bit of a gold sheen to it. I love that blush. Ooh, and you can build it. So a blush like this is so perfect when you're doing more of a monochromatic light nude makeup, but also when you want to do a pop of maybe red lipstick. On the other cheek, I'm going to go into this berry looking blush. This is called Pink Fusion. Sort of a raspberry tone. Very different from this side, which is great, so you truly have variety. I think with the eye and the lip, because everything else is so warm, I'm leaning towards this one. I think with different lipstick, different eye makeup, this would be a beautiful blush. But today, I think this one is my favorite. I kind of just want to see what the pink one would look like. So in the middle is Vibrant Coral down here. Let's just add a little bit of that. Ooh, that is definitely pigmented. It's gonna show up more on this side, so I'm just gonna layer a little bit of this. That's sort of the fun of these palettes anyway, is that you can layer and mix and create your own custom colors. See, that looks really pretty together as well. Actually, mixed together, it looks so much like NARS Orgasm because it has that light gold reflect. It's nice and peachy. That looks really pretty. So I really like these 2 blushes mixed together. It looks really good. These are warm undertone. This one is cool undertone. So again, you have a mix of tones, which is great. I love this side. I really like the combination. I'll probably just always mix them together, honestly, after seeing that. We have one bronzer, Natural Bronze, right here. I feel like this might be the repeat. I'm not sure. Yeah, the Natural Bronze is nice. It is very natural. Also very neutral to coolish. It's not a particularly warm bronzer. I think you could actually use it as maybe a bit of a contour shade. It looks okay. Honestly, not my favorite bronzer shade. I feel like that's usually the case with the Hourglass palettes. I typically love everything except for the bronzer. I think that's that one tricky product because we all have our own personal preferences and, shades that work for our varying skin tones. I don't know if there's any palette that I love the bronzer. If I do, it's maybe not my favorite with everything else inside. So it's okay. If I were traveling with this palette, I would probably pack an additional bronzer just to have a backup, but you could certainly get away with it. I'll use it on the eyes, I'll use it on the body, other places, and I'll make it work. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know if anybody out there is purchasing these palettes for the bronzer because the bronzer shade is just that spectacular. It's usually the blushes, the highlighters, the finishing powders. So it's okay, it did the trick. Now I'm going into the Rose Gold Strobe Light. This is the swirly marble powder in the center up here. This looks really interesting. Curious to see what this looks like. It's pretty. Maybe slightly rosier than the highlighter from the first palette, but still has that soft, kind of lit from within golden champagne glow. It's really, really nice. Yeah, the highlighter I love, the blushes I love, the bronzer is good. I just noticed, I checked all of the palettes, no dim light this year. I feel like dim light has been featured in almost every single Hourglass palette. So the finishing powder in this Evil Eye is Soft Light. That's this one right here. It's not going to be as brightening as the powders in the first palette. It's a little bit more of a tone-on-tone powder for me. It's very smoothing though. It sort of gives a buttery effect to the makeup. I'm gonna be curious to watch this back to compare. I guess maybe because I had high expectations for this palette, it was my favorite just based on the looks. Maybe that's why I'm not overly blown away by the makeup look. I definitely love this blush combination. I think I was pleasantly surprised with the first palette by how all of the colors looked on the skin. So I don't know which is my favorite between the two. I think I have individual favorites between the powders. I think both palettes overall are incredible. I feel like this is actually the standout powder for me in this palette. For some reason, I think the other two blushes grab your attention. This is the dark horse favorite. It gives that beautiful little hint of something. It's a little bit more natural, more sun-kissed. Once again, I'm gonna scoot in a little bit closer so you can get a nice look at these colors, and then I'm gonna wash my face and come back for the third palette. Last but certainly not least, I'm back with the Lotus palette. So we have two highlighters, two blushes, the finishing powder, and the bronzer. And it actually looks like this finishing powder might be a good bronzer shade on me. Let's start with Desert Flush in the center top up here. This is the lightest blush. Very pretty. Yeah, definitely not too dark on me. I could see that looking really pretty on somebody with a medium skin tone or a deeper skin tone. On the other side, I'm going to try Red Zero, this deep red blush. Also very wearable. I love that color. It translates to be a little bit more pink on the cheek. So we have a cooler pink, like a dusty rose, I guess. To add warmth to the face, I'm going up to this finishing powder, Eternal Light. Let's see what this looks like. It took a little extra blending, but I think I can make this work. The issue is because the finishing powders are meant to be really luminous, I don't necessarily love a super luminous bronzer because it can end up looking a little bit muddy on the skin, or it just doesn't look as smooth. I don't think I used enough setting powder whenever I reapplied my foundation, so this isn't like a perfect, pristine application. Can I make the shades work so far? Yes, I absolutely can. I'm not going to use these highlighters, but I will show you what that rose gold looks like on the eye. I think that kind of goes with what I have on. I'm just going to use my finger. For my skin tone, these strobe powders will be better as eyeshadows. I think that looks really nice. And do the gold on this side. That way we can see them both. Yeah, both the gold and the rose gold are really pretty. Well, you know, that top gold actually does work. Yeah, it does work. Okay, so the gold can be used as a highlight. Ooh. I like it on the cheek. I don't think I like it on the nose. I think that would be a little bit too dark. But for the cheek, it absolutely works. And then, of course, the body. Yeah, the highlighter is pretty. Just for fun, that way I can say I used every single powder in every palette. Yeah, I'm glad I didn't attempt that as a bronzer. That would have been way too dark. But as an eyeshadow, it's really nice. Very quickly, I ran to the mirror and I dusted on a little bit more setting powder because I felt like my face was looking a little bit shiny and it just felt a little bit too damp because I've just been slathering makeup remover, which is a bit oily, all over my face, patting, and then quickly reapplying foundation. So I needed a little setting powder. I dusted it everywhere. It helped to blend everything together. So no finishing powder in here, but I still think all of these shades are beautiful. I love the blushes. I really like the highlighters as eyeshadows. I mean, in a way, this is almost a little bit more perfect. I generally don't use a finishing powder every single day. On the weekends, for a date night, special occasion, when I'm doing like the full glam makeup, I will use a finishing powder always. But on a day-to-day basis, I'm not really using a finishing powder. I'm always using a setting powder. So I feel like this could be perfect for eyes, bronzer, cheek, and then I would need a separate setting powder anyways. I would never just be able to get away with using this for all powder. Since I bought it, I paid $90 for this. I want to make sure I can at least get use out of this palette, but it's probably not ideal or very promising to see somebody with a light skin tone such as myself be able to use the darkest palette. In a perfect world, these shades would be so vibrant, so intense, so deep that somebody with a very, very deep skin tone could use the palette, in which case I wouldn't be able to. I almost feel like I shouldn't be able to use this palette. It's not really the best sign. So we'll see. As the reviews come rolling in, I'm sure we'll find out if this does work for deeper skin tones or not. Overall, I like the way the makeup turned out. I almost feel like maybe that first makeup look using the first palette will be my favorite. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I was so barefaced and I really needed some blush and bronzer, because I think all three are really beautiful. It's hard to choose a favorite. This year, I'm torn between palette 1 and palette 2. And when I think about my other Hourglass palettes that I already own, I'm not sure if my favorite palette from this year really trumps my favorite from previous years. I will absolutely be using all three of these palettes in makeup videos sometime soon, but for this initial unboxing and review, that completes today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it and you found this information helpful. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, leave me your comments, questions down below. Again, all of the products mentioned, everything on my face will be tagged directly to this video, and for more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell.